Welcome to Season 15, Decoding the Conflict Mindset. This is our final episode for 2025, and I am so delighted to bring to you Kids Managing Conflict. And this is a nonprofit organization supporting conflict resolution skills and training for youth from elementary all the way to high school. And here today, I have the founding member of Kids Managing Conflict, but also former president of Southern California Mediation Association, which founded Kids Managing Conflict. So Jason Harper is here to tell you a little bit about how the origins of this program and how this came about. Jason himself is a mediator in private practice in the greater Los Angeles area, specializing in conflict resolution training for students and faculty at the middle school and high school levels. He's also an ADR consultant, professor, and trainer. He's with the USC and I think a couple of other institutions. One of his projects is with the Los Angeles County Office of Education. And as I mentioned, he was the 2017 president of Kids Managing Conflict Parent, SCMA. I've had the great honor of partnering with Jason on a number of programs and initiatives since 2012. So without further ado, we'll get started momentarily, but pass this on to anybody who's a parent, who's an educator, because this is an organization that any person involved in the education of youth should know about. So let's get started. Dr. Debra Dupree, founder and host of Decoding the Conflict Mindset. Well, welcome to Decoding the Conflict Mindset. And I'm so delighted to wrap up this season with a great program and featuring three people. So first, we're going to hear from Jason Harper, who's right here with me now. Welcome, Jason.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. Jason, you and I go back quite a few years, actually. I'm not even sure how long we've known each other. But I know it was through Southern California Mediation Association, of where I know you were former president, and I also served on the board, not at the same time as you, but we've been at many conferences and engagements over the years together. I'm so pleased that you were available and to come on this program and tell us more about Kids Managing Conflict and what the organization, how the organization began, but also what has the organization achieved. So Jason, take it away.
Absolutely. And thank you again, Deborah, for having me. I believe we first met in 2016. We were doing a panel with Jack Getz in San Diego. And I had met you even before then, but that was the first time we had ever done anything official together. So we are absolutely connected. And so it's an honor and privilege to be on your illustrious program. And so thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.
So about Kids Managing Conflict, it actually started under a different name. Now, you mentioned the Southern California Mediation Association, or SCMA, as we call it in the biz. But SCMA is the preeminent mediation organization in California and one of the leading organizations in the United States. And so during my time at SCMA, obviously I was a board member and then I became president. As I was a board member, KMC was actually known as the SCMA Education Foundation. And its objective was to provide conflict resolution books to university and dispute resolution organization libraries. That was the original mission of the Education Foundation. And at a certain point, at a certain year, it had completed that particular mission. And it was looking for a new direction at that point. And it also coincided with me as one of the people that ran the programs for the organization for SCMA. I put on a program on peer mediation and it took place at the Santa Monica Public Library in Southern California. And I had the great kids and administrators of university, high school coming in and talking about what peer mediation was, how it operated in their schools, and what were the benefits and some of the results of that program in their school. And it was received extremely well. People were crazy about it. So crazy about it, in fact, that the Education Foundation saw it and said, you know what, this is the direction that we need to go in. We need to not just, obviously, we want to increase the geography, the ground covered by SCMA, but really it's about the depth and how deep are we settling our roots within our space, within the mediation community, and really ingratiating ourselves to the youngest members of our mediation community. And so, with that in mind, in 2017, I oversaw the shift from the SCMA Education Foundation, which is still its legal name, to Kids Managing Conflict, which is an organization that supports emotionally as well as financially conflict resolution programs in K through 12 schools. And we've seen a number of great things that have happened since 2017 for the foundation, for KMC, as it were. And we've gone in a number of directions, from convening peer mediation events or symposiums that have really brought edification and continuing professional development for people that are managing peer mediation programs in K through 12 schools. It has provided monetary resources as well as training to a number of elementary, middle, and high schools within the Southern California region and even beyond California. One of the other good things about changing the name of SCMA Education Foundation to Kids Managing Conflict is that geography didn't mean anything anymore. So we were supporting schools in Minnesota. We were supporting schools in Africa. We were supporting schools in a number of different areas, and with the help of some amazing partners like Judicate West and AAA, we have been able to support a number of schools and really create and build the community of mediation with our youngest members.
That's so fascinating. So just to give a little context then, because I know we worked together in 2016, you became president. I remember that happening. And yet, when did the SCMA Education Foundation actually begin? So people have some idea of the longevity here. And then also, I know that you use the word AAA, and I know most people think of automobiles. And so those of us in the biz know what you're talking about. It stands for American Arbitration Association, or AAA. So just wanted to do that. So take us back. Absolutely. Take us back a little bit.
Absolutely. Look, I got my car registration renewed at the AAA. So there is that. But yes, it is the American Arbitration Association, led by some great people like a Harold Coleman and a Mike Powell and the like, but that we both have mutual friends with. Now, the SCMA Education Foundation began in 2007, and so it had spent roughly 9 years, about 9 years, just handling the objective of providing those books to universities for the purpose of dispute resolution and understanding dispute resolution, and went to a number of schools like Pepperdine, Cal State Dominguez Hills, like the Western Justice Center, which is another organization that has had a focus on dispute resolution. And the universities had dispute resolution master's programs, and so we supported them and provided books for their libraries as well as other organizations. So that was the impetus and the foundation of the SCMA EF, as we called it.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Yeah. So I think I started getting involved with SCMA in about 2010, and then started speaking at conferences at about 2012, because I know that it was such an LA-based organization initially, because that's where it was founded. It makes sense. But when somebody reached out to me and said, "We'd like to come do more in San Diego," I was like, "Okay, ready for it." Yeah. And now we're going through another shift at SCMA, because now we're going statewide.
Yeah, that is the goal. SCMA has been trying to do that for a number of years, through a number of presidencies. And so I think we've built enough of a foundation in Southern California to really launch a full effort to go statewide. When you think about how large California is, you could actually divide it into 3 different states if you really wanted to.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love the efforts.
Yeah, and I know, because I was on the board around the end of COVID kind of period too, and that's where with some of our educational programming, it really grew at that time. And I just was so intrigued with KMC, because I love the idea that teaching our leaders of tomorrow conflict resolution skills today. And just imagine having leadership that actually knows how to resolve conflict. It's, oh my gosh, yes. So I'm 100% behind it. Tell us a little bit, Jason, about, you talked about from elementary to high school and so forth, but do you have an example or a couple, 2-3 examples of just what KMC has helped schools in Southern California or anywhere? Because you talked about Africa and Minnesota. What has the organization helped them achieve?
Well, I'll tell you something. KMC has been really instrumental with a lot of programs. For instance, you have South Pasadena High School, which was one of the first schools that was supported by Kids Managing Conflict. We provided funding for them to get their peer mediation program off the ground, as well as supporting it even as it was really in its formative stages and even into becoming more established on the campus. And when you think about building a peer mediation program, you need buy-in, not just from the administration, but most importantly from the other students. They need to have an understanding. The general student body needs to understand that, hey, this is a resource that is not meant to put your business out in the street. This is not a program that is serving to exacerbate the conflict. This is actually something that it is your space, right? You have the agency here, and you can talk through your issues and work them out so that you can be a better student, so that you can actually focus on your classwork and the things that are important to you. Obviously, starting programs like in South Pasadena, all the way to a Fremont High School, which is in central Los Angeles. Their suspension and expulsion rate, once their peer mediation program got started, it reduced 95%. And so when you're bringing programs like these, programs that are teaching students not just about the concept of conflict, not just about the idea of conflict management, but really giving the skills to be able to facilitate conversation, to resolve conflict, and the active listening and the reframing and the perspective taking that all of that comes along with, then you're now giving those children the tools to be able to be better students, better community members, better executives. And so with that, there's less of a punitive action being taken from the school because it's already been resolved. So there's less detentions, there's less expulsions, there's less suspensions. Everyone becomes a little bit better, and the student body becomes a tighter unit, dipping into the communities at large.
Wow. Yeah, I'm so amazed by that because as a board member for SCMA, I oftentimes attended the annual symposiums and had a chance to actually hear firsthand from students about how the training through PMC has enriched their lives, not just at schools, but the influence that they've had on their families and communities. And so it's far-reaching.
Yeah, and I always like to say that I myself personally and as an organization, I don't necessarily like to call myself the catalyst in these situations, but we were a witness to a lot of victories. And one of the biggest victories that I've seen in my time with Kids Managing Conflict as well as SCMA president was seeing just the progression of the students. We've seen, like I mentioned in South Pasadena High School, we had students that were in that original peer mediation program. They have now gone through college. Now we're into the workspace, and some are even teaching at that same school. And so you see the cycle and how it goes and how it builds with different generations now. And so those are the kind of things that, that I really take to heart and that really excites me, because with Kids Managing Conflict, with peer mediation, we're planting seeds. And now we're starting to see the harvest. We're seeing the students that have received that instruction, have taken it to college, have taken it to the workspace. I've seen them in corporate. I've seen them in education. They're coming back and they're taking the skills with them. And now they're bringing it to the next generation of students. And that's how we build our leadership for the future.
Yes, those are amazing stories. I'm curious, since I come from Minnesota, and I actually started off in education at one point, a few shifts along the way. But I have to admit that one reason I didn't stay in it, not because I didn't love working with kids, it was the parents and the teachers that were so challenging. Yeah. And so I hear the influence on students. I guess, what have you seen in terms of the mindset of the administrators and teachers and even parents for that matter?
I think there's a number of things. So we share a history. In a former life, I was a 7th grade algebra teacher. And making the shift to mediation in the K through 12 space was something that immediately bent my ear and tugged on my heart. So yeah, so we definitely have that in common. But to your question about how it's translating to the adults in the room, because I always used to say the kids are the easy part. It's the adults that are really the ones that are testing you. And so when we talk about that buy-in process, and that's really what it's about, it's the adult buy-in. One of the things that I've seen, unfortunately, is the ego of adults supersedes the needs of the kids. And so what happens with peer mediation, what happens with conflict resolution education, as it were, is that you're learning a new language. Basically, what we have to do is, for the students, we're presenting new information and they're able to be molded in a certain way. With the adults, there's an unlearning that has to take place because of their history, their background, however they grew up, whether it's culturally, whether it's from a rural to a city background, to just their family makeup. All of those things contributes to how they interact with conflict. And so to be able to help them unlearn some things, to help them to understand what conflict is as a concept, we tend to use the same words, but we have different meanings for them. And so we make these silent agreements in our minds about how we're going about things, even though we're using the same words. And so what happens is they're unlearning what they've been taught. And now they're seeing conflict in a different way. They're seeing it's broken down on a conceptual level. And then from there, we talk about, instead of conflict prevention and conflict avoidance, we're talking about conflict management. How do we, because we can't prevent conflict in this life, how do we provide the tools to be able to engage with it when it happens? And you would not believe the light bulb that goes off with the adults when we talk about it from that standpoint. One of the classes that I've taught in recent years at Lipscomb University in Nashville, Tennessee, conflict management for educational leadership. And that is essentially teaching the adults about peer mediation, but within a slightly larger system. And the first thing that they always say is, I'm trained in all of these different things. I'm trained in pedagogical methods. I'm trained in budgeting. I'm trained in progressive discipline, but nobody ever taught me how to handle conflict with other adults. And so that's what involves that unlearning process, just fending for themselves, essentially. And so now that we've unlearned what they brought in, now we can provide some new perspectives, some new concepts, and it can change the way that they operate professionally and personally.
Yeah. Sometimes when you are talking to adult leaders, I don't need this. I can handle anything. And yet,
Exactly.
and a lot of resistance. But I can see where by working through with students and helping students manage conflict differently, it makes their lives easier. And so it's like vicarious learning in a way. So they're gaining the benefit of it, but with a different focus. Yeah. Okay, great. And you mentioned Africa. That's another thing we have in common, because when I was director of training for Mediation Training Institute, we worked with several groups of adults who wanted to expand mediation in the continent of Africa. I'm pleased to hear that you've been actually working with schools in Africa too. And so can you tell us just a little bit about that?
Yeah, one of the greatest things that ever happened was during, I believe it was 2019 or early 2020, we were contacted by a gentleman who was running schools in Africa. The specific country escapes me at the moment, but he needed funding for just books and supplies. He saw that the kids were getting in a lot of conflict, and he looked us up and found Kids Managing Conflict and asked for just some clarification on what it was that KMC provided and for any kind of support that we could provide. And so I had some conversations with a gentleman who was running the schools, and we were able to really help them with supplies. We were able to help them with a little bit of a curriculum on how to manage conflict, some of those conflict management skills like active listening, like perspective taking, being willing to listen first and then speak, talking through what needs were being missed, sharing that information. And he's been able to take that to his school and his schools, plural, and be able to bring that to some of the students.
Yeah, that's fantastic. As I like to say, people are people no matter where you are in the world. We're all part of that family called the human race. And
yeah, you realize how big the world is, but how similar we are. And that's the big lesson that I learned from my time and working with those schools.
great. Jason, thank you so much for providing that very succinct history and accomplishments of the evolution of KMC. If people would like to reach out to you, Jason, how might they reach you?
Yeah, no, great question. Thank you for asking that. Yeah, one way to reach out to me, you can send me an email. My email is jhmediation@gmail.com. And if you have any questions on peer mediation, feel free to reach out there, and I'd love to speak with you.
Oh, great. Thank you so much, Jason, for being here. And to all of our listeners and viewers, please don't go away, because right after this, we are going to hear from the current president and executive director to get an idea of, okay, we just heard where KMC has come from. Let's take a look at where they're headed. And so thank you, Jason, and thank you to all of our viewers and listeners. Please pass this on. If you know somebody in the schools, let them know about Kids Managing Conflict in this particular episode so that they too can learn more about managing conflict. Like you said, Jason, it's not just about resolving it, it's about managing it.
Exactly.
Great. Thank you so much. Folks, Dr. Debra Dupree, the Mindset Doc, founder and host of Decoding the Conflict Mindset, another step in one conversation at a time. Thank you. Well, I hope you enjoyed learning more about Kids Managing Conflict, its origins, and some of its developments, and how much they have helped schools, particularly throughout Southern California. But as Jason said, they've grown nationwide and even internationally. Now, coming up next, to give you a glimmer into the future of KMC coming in 2026 is its current director, Crystal Williams, and its executive director, Cheryl Epps. And so let me clarify, Crystal is actually the president of Kids Managing Conflict. And Crystal herself is a trauma-informed mediator and an ADR consultant. She leads White and Williams on ADR services, specializing in special education dispute resolution. And she is the current president, as I mentioned, for KMC. And she's had some wonderful, great ideas for 2026 and beyond. So we're looking forward to some changes. She's also active in various organizations. She's involved as a board member for the Southern California Mediation Association, the parent organization of KMC. She's also a board member and program advisory chair for the Western Justice Center, who's also involved in a number of educational initiatives. And that executive director was on the DCM podcast just a couple of months ago, so must listen to that one too. And interesting, she's been very active in efforts with youth police dialogue. And so she is a program director for that program. And this is in collaboration with the San Pedro Rotary Club and the LAPD Harper Division. Joining her is our executive director, Cheryl Epps. Cheryl also has a distinguished background in working not only with education, but also with children and family services through Los Angeles County Department, and with over 27 years of service. She's been at this a long time. She also brings a wealth of knowledge and experience with youth and underserved communities, and she too works with schools and colleges nationwide, and really celebrating and emphasizing how to improve the relationship between students and local policing agencies. So let's wrap this wonderful episode up on Kids Managing Conflict. I think you'll be intrigued. I think you'll be excited to know what's happening and the success that's been experienced in their existence so far. As an SCMA board member, I took the opportunity to attend a series of their annual symposiums where students came in to speak about what they gained, what they learned, and how it's improved their lives, not only at school, reducing bullying, detention, things like that, but also how it's improved their families and their communities. So let's get started. Don't go away. Part 2 of this episode, and we'll find out what's currently happening. Again, Dr. Debra Dupree, the Mindset Doc, and founder and host of Decoding the Conflict Mindset. Thank you for being here. And again, pass the word out. The recordings will be available. Well, welcome back, folks. You just heard Jason Harper, former president of SCMA and part of the founders of what's now known as Kids Managing Conflict. And I'm so excited to have with us today our new president, Crystal Williams,
Hello.
and our executive director, who's been around for a while, Cheryl Epps. Thank you. Welcome to both.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, I'm so excited. As I mentioned in our prior segment, is that I was formerly on the SCMA board once we were able to do our board meetings virtually, and but kept hearing the updates about Kids Managing Conflict, and I thought, you know what, I work a lot with school districts, not the students, but the administrators, and so I can see a lot of schools where this could be used. And so I thought, you know what, that's going to be my mission, to be on the KMC board. And so I was honored and so delighted when I did join the board a year or so ago. I can't even remember now when it was, and to learn what the organization has accomplished and so forth. And so I would like to have the two of you, being the current leaders, as we shall say, tell us a little bit more about what is conflict resolution, what is peer mediation, what are some examples of some of the successes, and where do you think you're going in our future years to come? Cheryl, start out, because you've got more of a history than Crystal, than I do.
Thank you, Debra. Yes, so conflict resolution it's a process for teaching strategies for students or for youth in general to peacefully address their issues with each other and to do it in a productive way. It uplifts their voice, brings attention to issues, allows them to see each other's perspectives, promotes understanding. It's a series of skills and strategies that youth in general can use in order to address their conflict in a healthy way. When you talk about peer mediation, that is actually the process where they use a lot of those conflict resolution skills in order to address issues like bullying to a certain extent, gossiping, something as simple as in elementary school, you cut in front of me in line, or rumors or other issues where students just have natural conflict, but it teaches them how to do it in a productive way, in a healthy way. And we also teach them how to do that with empathy, how to do it with grace, how to do it with compassion, and how to improve the relationships that you have with peers that they have with each other, not only in the school setting but also in their social circles or on social media. So equipping them with conflict resolution skills like active listening, perspective taking, reframing or restating the issues, making emotional regulation, all of those things that are important that students and youth need to learn in order to relate to each other. And with social media and students having or youth having access to these other methods of communication, sometimes that gets lost because they're so used to communicating with their phones or online. So these skills are so critical, not just as a youth, but it sets them on a pathway to success as adults, because those skills also translate into adulthood as well.
Absolutely. Jason also talked about reframing and active listening and perspective taking keys to managing conflict effectively. And so I'm curious, Cheryl, I know you've been very integrally involved in actually doing some of the training. And so can you share an example of where you've had, or two, of where you've really seen some tremendous success? I know Jason referred to a significant reduction at Fremont. And so how has that changed and shaped the lives of actual students?
Thank you for that question, Deborah. What's happening is that once students learn these skills, or I'm saying students/youth, because these skills are also appropriate in our social settings, like at an after-school program, or on their sports teams, or in their neighborhoods, or even in their own homes. Once the youth learn these skills, then they feel empowered and they will ask for mediation if a situation comes up. So they're already learning how to have patience, how to process what they're thinking and feeling, to the point that they can now advocate for themselves in a healthy and productive way, instead of, we're going to meet after school at 3 o'clock and fight it out. So that's one of the major changes that's happening in our schools, is that they're becoming more proactive in handling their conflicts in a better way and asking for mediation, or deciding that certain ways that they communicate, maybe they won't do that anymore. One quick example, when we have a mediation peer-to-peer, one of the things that they talk about in the mediation is, once we settle this here, now you go out and you tell your friends this issue is squashed. Because one of the other problems that you have is that when students have an issue with each other, then you have the rumor, the buzz, the other students that either want to instigate or try to keep the beef going. So that's one of the key components when we have a peer mediation, is that you both will now go out and put out the new narrative that this issue has been resolved. And that makes such a huge difference with the youth, again, either in schools or in their social settings.
Yeah, it is. I think the proverbial rumor mill, and or the gossiping that goes on. Yeah. Okay. And have you seen examples, or maybe you can share a quick story as far as how students' lives have been changed, or at a particular school that's been involved with KMC?
Yeah, certainly. So we work with elementary, middle school, and high school students. And one of the other things that we teach youth to do is how to dialogue with each other. So we've had dialogues with youth from these schools so they can talk about current things that are happening. Most recently, the ICE raids. We have had dialogues with youth from our partner schools who come together and talk about how that's impacting them, and how sometimes it can cause a little bit of a rift between youth who may not have a true appreciation or understanding for what another student is going through, or another youth is going through. So we have created spaces that have been very helpful in allowing the students to come together and talk about what's happening and how someone else's comments, their behaviors have impacted them, and they do it in a way that they can listen and hear each other and understand each other, and then bring in the compassion and empathy so that they correct that behavior, or they have an opportunity to address that offense. And so that's some of what's been happening recently. Some schools have different issues than other schools. Some schools might have more of an issue with bullying. Some schools might have more of an issue with typical dating issues between girls fighting over a guy or something that was said. So it's very specific. And what we do, we tailor whatever the training is that we deliver to our youth according to what is currently happening, either in their social circles, youth programs, or in their schools. The types of cases may vary, but we do help students to be able to communicate better and talk about what's been happening and get a chance to hear each other so that they can make more strategic steps to engage better later on. And those are some of the many cases that we've had. I mentioned the ICE raids. We've talked about culturally. We've had some conflict where students have had to address cultural differences and how someone who might have said something on the fly thinking that it wasn't offensive, how it then impacted that student. And now they were able to come together and talk about it. And the student who made the offensive comment can now hear about, okay, I understand why that was offensive to you, and have an opportunity to apologize and resolve the issue in that particular mediation session. So that's just one example of many of the transformation that's happening, not only at the elementary and middle school level, but also at the high school level.
Yeah, wow. Again, powerful and influential on so many levels, for sure. Yeah. And I'm curious then, Crystal, because I know coming in as president then and some shifts and focus and things like that, where do you see KMC going? What's your thought?
One thing that I see for KMC is us really giving young people the tools to navigate through tough moments in ways that keep relationships intact, builds confidence, and open doors for leadership. So where previously we were exclusively focused on providing funding to schools to seek out and find their own training, what we have decided moving forward is to become a source of providing that training. So we'll be, in addition to providing training, we'll be developing peer mediation programs where we provide training specific to student mediators. We'll also be developing interactive, developmentally appropriate workshops on a variety of skills that are necessary for a solid conflict resolution program. Some of the skills that Cheryl mentioned previously, like active listening, self-regulation, things like that. We also are available to help schools develop a program. We provide a needs assessment. We look at program design and rollout, provide supports and toolkits for districts. And we really want to make sure that no school is left without support. We've worked with some wonderful partners over the years who everybody just doesn't have the bandwidth to just continue to expand. So we wanted to make sure that we can fill in those gaps. And we also have an offering for schools that maybe already have an established peer mediation program to provide skill refreshers, because as we all know as professionals in this work, a one-off training is never enough. We are lifelong learners as our educators, right? So we want to make sure that we are continuously providing students with the skills that they needed to take them from that beginner level to an advanced level.
Wow, that is exciting as far as getting a little bit more active involvement directly with schools. And how can people reach out? How can people support KMC more actively?
Sure. We really just want to emphasize that KMC is a great opportunity for partnership because of our 20 plus years of youth focused mediation experience, trauma informed and culturally responsive practices, which Cheryl and I have worked really hard to make sure that we're embedding in the trainings that we're providing. And we really do have a commitment to elevating student voice and leadership. And we offer flexible services for schools and districts and community organizations. And we really feel like now is the time and the moment to invest in youth voice, safer schools, and more restorative solutions. All across the country, schools are facing rising peer conflict, emotional dysregulation, strained relationships between youth and adults, and also peer-to-peer. Traditional discipline alone cannot meet this moment, but youth-centered conflict resolution education can. KMC is ready to partner with any school, district, community organization in California nationwide to do work and build sustainable systems that are going to help reduce suspensions disciplines fights bullying, increase student leadership, accountability, and empathy, strengthen school connectedness and improve attendance, provide alternatives to punitive discipline, and really equip youth with lifelong skills that they will carry into future workplaces and communities. And our partnerships really can change the trajectory of a student's life. Bringing KMC programs into schools or youth centers in your community is not just a way to help solve today's conflicts, but it really is a way to develop tomorrow's peacemakers, leaders, and community builders. And we invite anyone watching to join us in building a culture of peace, leadership, and belonging together. If you have a school or a community group that you would like to invite KMC out to support, please feel free to reach out to us. You can contact us today at info@kidsmanagingconflict.org. You can check out our website at www.kidsmanagingconflict.org. You can follow us on social media. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. I think eventually we'll be moving forward to some of the more trendier ones like TikTok and those things, but we're not there yet. But please find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, or feel free to just email us and we'll be happy to respond and connect with you guys in a way that will allow us to do this work together because no one can do it on their own.
Absolutely. You know, as they say, it takes a village, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And the one thing I'll just say real quickly before we wrap up is that one idea I heard the two of you speak about at the recent SCMA conference is that if you have a school in your community that you want to adopt, this would be a great way to support it through KMC and to really reinvest in your own community or where your kids go or where your grandkids go, whatever that might be. So yeah, lots of good ideas, lots of great ways to support KMC. And I want to thank both of you. I know how hard you work and the leadership and vision that you bring to the organization. And let's go forth and do great things, right, folks?
Absolutely.
That's right. Oh, that's right.
Okay, great. Our
Thank
viewers
you
and
so much,
listeners,
Dr. Dupree.
thank you, Cheryl, and thank you, Crystal, for being with me today. I get very passionate about investing in our youth for tomorrow's leaders and want to make sure that we use this platform to make people aware of the opportunities of changing students' lives, even if you're not directly involved. But we can make a difference in our communities, and KMC is proof of that. So thank you all. Thank you to all of our viewers and listeners. Again, pass this on to people that in the educational community, youth organizations. This program is available anywhere. So
yes, and if you would like to join us in our end of year campaign, if you need those last minute tax write-offs, you can go to our KMC website and just click donate and it will come directly to us and we will make sure that it is put to great use and we'll send you a nice thank you card at the end.
Yes, thank
very
you.
good. Thank you for sharing that. Yes, I already made my donation, and particularly on Giving Tuesday. Okay. Thanks again, everyone, for being a part of Decoding the Conflict Mindset. Again, I'm the host and founder, Dr. Debra Dupree, the Mindset Doc, and wishing you the best as we move forward in creating a new form of leadership with today's youth. Thank you again,
Absolutely.
folks.
Thank you. And
Thank you.
happy
Have a good
holidays.
evening.
Bye-bye.
Well, I hope that you learned as much as I always do. In fact, learning about KMC a number of years ago, even before I was on the board for SCMA, its parent host, I was intrigued by what was being done in our educational settings, both after school and during school, and the tremendous impact it's had on changing the lives. In fact, some of the early participants have gone on to college and now are actually working for schools, helping to bring in the training and programs related to KMC's offerings and support for training kids of all ages on conflict resolution. So this has been a wonderful season for 2025. So many exciting and informative guest speakers. And please sign up. Spread the word. We have a whole new slate of exciting programs coming forward in 2026 and continue to be with you, to guide you, educate you on dispute resolution strategies, techniques, and tools. With that, I want to wish you the very best for this holiday season. Go forth, do great things, and move with peace, one conversation at a time.